All right, we're going to move over now to UFC. Aljamain Sterling is a minus 113, taking on Henry Cejudo, also a minus 113. So it's a pick 'em. It's for the UFC bantamweight title. Bryan, how do you have this one going?
Aljamain Sterling, one of the most controversial UFC champions probably ever. Because he wins the title, he gets the illegal knee from Peter Yan. This is in March of 2021.
I thought Jan won that fight. Like, if it wasn't for that knee, I was like, yo,
he
Pietro
was
Jan definitely had that
he
one.
he was definitely up. And then I think a fight that you and I broke down when we were at FanDuel, he beat Jan in the rematch in 2012, a controversial split decision. A lot of people had Jan winning. I did not. I thought Aljamain Sterling
Nah,
actually edged this one out.
agree with you.
And then in October, he fights TJ Dillashaw, which TJ Dillashaw getting a title shot was a little bit surprising to me given the suspension prior. And then he fought with one arm, and Aljamain Sterling got his first knockout in years against TJ Dillashaw, who had a dislocated shoulder. And Aljamain Sterling's had the title for about 2 years,
Yeah.
and he's going to fight Henry Cejudo, who has not fought since May of 2020, where he beat Dominic Cruz and then retired. He obviously has those wins over Demetrius Johnson. I was at one of the last UFC events I did before COVID was January 2019. This was famously Greg Hardy's UFC debut. And also when they had him, despite the domestic violence arrest,
Okay.
being on the same card as Rachel Ostovich, a domestic violence survivor, who fought Paige Van Zandt that night, which was a fight for the horn dogs, let's say. That got very dark and very light very quickly. So we're just gonna move on. I was at that fight, and Henry Cejudo fought TJ Dillashaw. A lot of people thought Dillashaw was gonna win, and Henry Cejudo knocked him out in about 30 seconds. And that sort of stamped him in that fight. But yeah, I think as it pertains to this in particular, I just been leaning Aljamain Sterling. Like I feel like he's going to show out against somebody who hasn't been in the octagon in about 3 years. I think people question his title run, and there have been some questions as to how convincing he's been as a champion over the last couple of years. But I'm rolling with my fellow New Yorker. That's not the reason why, because I could also roll with my fellow Latino, but I'm not doing that. Aljamain Sterling straight up on the money line though, minus 113. It was minus 105 yesterday, so this line has been moving back and
Yeah.
forth. I think more money is going to come in on Henry Cejudo by the time the fight rolls around. But I think Aljamain Sterling is just going to get it done. I'm probably also going to sprinkle on the submission at plus 400. I think Aljamain Sterling will be wise to try to take this to the ground if he could. Henry Cejudo, he has to test him, see where he's at. It's been a while since we saw him in the octagon. And Henry Cejudo is obviously he's going to try to knock him out too because he knows he has an advantage on the feet. So I'm going to roll with Aljamain Sterling just straight up on the money line. I think he gets it done.
Yeah, you pretty much laid it out there perfectly. But I mean, Henry Cejudo, he hasn't fought since May of 2020. I know that's a really long layoff, but he's an elite wrestler, has the wrestling advantage. He has a really high IQ, solid boxer. Like you mentioned, he's going to have the advantage on the feet as well. Low kicks are nasty. I think he sets up his kicks really well. He mixes it up really well. So I don't think Aljamain Sterling has seen a guy like him. And I know there has been a long layoff, but everything we've seen from Henry Cejudo, the dude is absolutely elite. You talked about Aljamain Sterling trying to get him down. Henry Cejudo has great takedown defense.
Great takedown
Like,
defense.
I think if Aljamain Sterling tries to take him down, Henry Cejudo is going to get back up on his feet because that's how good his takedown defense is. I don't think he keeps him there.
Former
Al-
wrestler, yeah.
Exactly, right? And I mean, Aljamain Sterling, he has good wrestling and good grappling. I think he does definitely have the grappling advantage. He also has the height and reach advantage in this one. I think this one's going to be a technical fight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yep.
also not sure if Aljamain Sterling's power is going to cause any damage to a guy like Henry Cejudo. Like, I don't think it's going to phase him at all. I think he's going to try to get Henry Cejudo onto the ground, but he's just not going to be able to. I think that the rounds are going to go to Henry Cejudo. And I also think that Henry Cejudo is going to get this victory on points, so by decision at plus 210. I think it's going to be a technical fight. I think this one goes the distance, and I think Henry Cejudo is going to win. So I have him winning on points at plus 210, and I think there's good value there.
I think a lot of people are going to agree with you. I don't care though. I'm going to roll out Aljamain Sterling to get the win. I
No,
think
I think people are
I
taking him as well. everything
Well,
I've seen from
judging by how
Henry
the
Cejudo, like it's hard to go against him.
judging by how the line is moved, yeah, people are jumping on Aljamain Sterling a little bit. I would say though, if this fight had taken place, say Henry Cejudo doesn't retire, and this actually happens at the end of 2020 or the beginning of 2021, and maybe Aljamain Sterling, instead of fighting Peter Yan, fights Henry Cejudo. Yeah, I probably take Henry Cejudo. I'm holding the 3 years like against him a little bit because it's just very difficult in combat sports, whether it be mixed martial arts, jiu-jitsu, boxing, just to
Yeah.
come back in 3 years, world title fight after not. I'm sure he's been training and shape, things of that nature, but actually being in a fight. Whereas Aljamain Sterling, he had an active 2022. He had multiple
He's
fights. He
been
had,
active.
yeah,
He's definitely been more active, and if you believe in the like activity part, and I do to an extent, but I also just believe in like IQ and how good someone is, and I think all around Henry Cejudo's better than Aljamain Sterling. And I know there's been the layoff, but there's also it's been questionable for Aljamain Sterling, right? Like
yeah.
with everything and
He
the
hasn't
way
been
that
a
he got
convincing
his
champion,
title.
admittedly.
So I think there's a lot of questions around that. But if Aljamain Sterling can get it done against Henry Cejudo, then I'll shut up. Like I'll stop talking smack about it. Because I thought Jan beat him the first time, and then the illegal knee obviously happened.
Dumb
I
move.
thought he won the second time, Aljamain Sterling. I did give him that, but the same thing with Dillashaw. Like Dillashaw fought that with one hand. Like he shouldn't even have fought that fight. So
Yeah.
even just taking, but I mean, in some point, like you take a look at the things that Aljamain Sterling has. He's the only guy to ever finish Corey Sandhagen.
Hmm.
That's impressive,
Yeah.
right? That's a good solid name. I'm not saying he doesn't have any names, and I'm not trying to discredit him, but I just think all around Henry Cejudo is the better fighter. So I'm gonna roll him to win on points at +210. And Bryan, you've got Aljamain Sterling winning by.
Straight up on the money line, -113. Also going to sprinkle on Aljamain Sterling by submission. Maybe he
Okay.
gets a Dars, something like that. +400. Also might even sprinkle on Aljamain Sterling to win by submission early, like, between rounds 1 and 3, something along those lines. I think, look, if you're fighting somebody who's been inactive, it'd be wise to jump on him early. You're laughing because you know that that's probably not going to happen.
His takedown defense is crazy. Like
Sprinkle.
he's
I
I
said sprinkle. And by the way, in MMA, like we just see
and
shit.
here's the layoff thing. Like we just saw what John Jones did. Right?
Henry Cejudo is not John Jones.
But he is
I
an elite
understand that,
fighter.
but Henry Cejudo is not
But
John Jones.
he's still an elite
And
fighter.
Aljamain Sterling is also not
No,
Cyril Gane.
but
Cyril Gane had a dumb game plan going into that fight, evidently.
but at the
John
same
Jones got
time,
him down and choked him
though,
out with
like
like two
that,
fingers.
I'm just making the comparison of a layoff, right? Because John Jones had a layoff, so it's like how much value are we putting into this layoff? We got to have
John
this fight
Jones,
happen so we
John,
can quit arguing about this. But I'm
John
rolling with
Jones
Henry
also did
Cejudo.
it, Shantelle. John Jones also did it at heavyweight. He didn't have to cut or whatever the case may be. I don't know. Henry Cejudo's big for bantamweight.
Yo, he stays in shape though. You know what I mean?
Listen, I think I don't think those are apples to apples. I think you compare a water bottle to a ketchup bottle.
No, I'm not talking about fight styles. Like you're getting too emotional about this. I'm just talking about a layoff. I'm talking about a layoff here. Like how much value are we putting into a layoff to be like, oh, and it's true. Like it is a 3-year layoff. However, like at the same time, like we just saw John Jones come back from a layoff, and I know you're putting him on a different pedestal, which he deserves to be.
Yes.
But at the same time, we're not comparing fight styles. We're just talking about a layoff.
Do you think Henry Cejudo beat Mighty Mouse the second time?
It's quite. I mean, it's questionable, right? But at the same time, it's like I'm not looking at the past, right? Because we could question a whole bunch of stuff on Aljamain Sterling's resume, right? We could sit here and we've been doing that. I could go like, oh, he didn't beat Petr Yan that first time if it wasn't for that illegal knee. Did he beat him the second time? Because some people thought Petr Yan won that one as well. Like, ooh, he knocked out Dillashaw. Dillashaw had one hand. Like, don't make me sit here and talk about Aljamain Sterling's record. No disrespect to Aljamain Sterling. If you want to come on the show, man, I would appreciate that. But all I'm saying is
another point I could make that just totally just nuked this entire conversation. I'm gonna let it be though. All I'm gonna say is Aljamain Sterling is better than a lot of UFC fans give him credit for.
No,
and I know why a lot of UFC fans don't give him a lot of credit. But we'll leave that.
Why is that? Why don't you spit it out? Why don't you spit it out? Why don't guys? Why don't they give him his credit?
Look, man, these white people love UFC. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, that okay. Well, we're
I
gonna
remember
we're
all
gonna
the shit. I remember all the shit Tyron Woodley got when he was a champion. You know what I mean? And people didn't think he was that convincing either. That was the narrative that went around, and I was like, "Are you sure? Is it just that, or is it, you know?" But
I
hey,
mean, that could be in a lot of things in a lot of sports. So we could just leave that right there. I don't want to pull I don't. Are you pulling a Kendrick Perkins on here right now? No, I'm just joking.
no,
Eh,
no, that's different because Nikola Jokic is cold as fuck.
No, okay. But by the way, at the mandatory, we want to know who you're rolling with. Are you going to roll with Bryan and go with Aljamain Sterling? Are you rolling with me and go with Henry Cejudo? Let us know. Drop some comments below, and also follow us at the mandatory TKO. And keep in mind, if you haven't already subscribed to the show, please do. We really appreciate your support. And if either of us are wrong and you have it a draw or something, and you want to talk some smack, drop the slip so we can see if you won or not. Drop your slips before the fight happens, though, so you can talk your smack after. Bryan, any last words?
No.